Good evening. This is KC9UDX. My name is Matt, and I welcome you to the 2 AM net. The purpose of this net is to promote the use of amplitude modulation and also to establish this part of this band as a place for AM activity in this area. Everyone is invited to listen. Licensed amateurs who can do so legally are encouraged to check in. Listen in the AM mode and transmit in the AM mode where possible. If you cannot transmit in AM, we encourage you to listen in AM and transmit in FM. If you are transmitting in FM, please adjust your transmit frequency a couple kcs above or below from our receive frequency. This facilitates the use of slope detection, that is, demodulating your FM signal with our AM receivers. When checking in, please announce your call sign in standard phonetics. Again, this is KC9UDX. My name is Matt, and I will now begin accepting check-ins. Any stations wishing to check in, please come now.
Good evening, Matt. W9JCC.
All right, recognizing Frank, W9JCC. Welcome to the net. Do we have anybody else?
Whiskey, Bravo 9, Bravo, Whiskey, Papa.
All right, I got WV9BWP Dave, and I believe there was a double there, so the doubling station, please try again.
Okay, Matt, I'll take what you need to Dave, Frank, 219, and Jerry.
All right, got you that time, Jerry, K9FI. Welcome to the net, you and Dave. And do we have anybody else? All right, hearing none so far, we'll get things rolling here. I, despite the fact that we've been off here for 2 months, don't have a whole lot to talk about. Things don't change a whole lot here for me. It's just work, I guess. Of course, last month we were off the air because of severe weather, and it did get pretty bad here. No actual damage this time, though. It was kind of surprising. Normally when we have high winds, I get a lot of damage, but this time I was spared of that. The piano that I ordered in March, I think it was March, has still not arrived. And it's beginning to irritate me, I guess. So we'll see what happens with that. I've been trying to get my fingers working in preparation for getting it, but it would be much nicer if I actually had it. I've got some serious digital latency in my left hand. And practicing on a plasticky organ keyboard that's really foamy is not the way to fix that, I don't think. I've got an organ that does have heavy wooden piano keys, but that's not quite the same as practicing on a piano. So hopefully one of these days. The last estimate I was told of arrival was late August, early September, and I think we're kind of wearing that one out. So we'll go to the top of the list. Frank, W9JCC. Let's let you talk and see if you have anything to add to the net. Go ahead from KC9UDX.
Okay, thank you, Matt, and good evening, Jerry. Good evening, Dave. And yeah, we've been kind of busy on and off here. I did a little bit of work on the tower. I put new brake pads on the tilt winch. It's one of those brake winches that will hold up when you let go of the handle. And that was kind of tricky. I've never done that before. So I was thinking a new winch would have cost me probably about $260, but the pads were about $20. So we got the pads, and I think it's working okay. Of course, I haven't lowered it down, but put a little tension on the cable, and it seemed to be clicking and pulling when it's supposed to, and sliding backwards when it's supposed to, and holding. also has some leaks in the gearbox for the power winch that raises the power up and down. It started leaking oil or lube, and I think it all started when I started filling the gearbox to the top. You're not really supposed to, but I was getting so much water out of the thing every year that I was trying to minimize the air infiltration, however it got in there. And it's got a relief valve on top, so I thought that would kick in, but I think what happened is that the relief valve was probably too stiff, and I started pushing the lube out around the seals. So I got a little can out there now that's collecting lube, so I can determine how much I'm losing. And so far it looks like it's only losing a couple drops a day. So it's not going to be too bad. I think I can let it go for once a year probably. And playing on the piano there, Matt, I hope you get it soon. It sounds like another supply chain thing. And I had that problem with our freezer. It took me about 4 or 5 months to get a freezer in here. Anyway, back to net control, W9GCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. And yeah, it's probably that, and the fact that I guess people are doing things that hobby type things that they didn't used to do, ever since everybody was stirred up by this COVID stuff. So I guess musical instrument sales have changed drastically. People like me buying for themselves at home, sales are up, and sales for larger organizations are down. I guess because the schools were shut down last year or whatever, and that's affected a lot of things. One thing about the gearbox there, something that most people, I guess, are unaware of just because nobody ever thinks about this. When you overfill a gearbox, it tends to have more air ingress than it does if you leave airspace in the gearbox. The reason for that is the hydraulic force of the oil as it shrinks and expands. If there's no air, or if there's less air in the box, it'll pull in, it'll more easily pull in air from the wherever the thing is leaking or the vents or whatever. But if there's more air volume in there, the air in there will expand and contract, and the hydraulic force will not have as much of an effect on it. So that's something to consider with that. And I wonder if it's got a drain on the bottom that you could put a drain cock on to get the water out once in a while. And replacing the fine business on replacing the brake pads on the winch. That is probably a little bit of work, but I suspect that you have a better product in the end when you replace the brakes on it than if you buy a new one. That's my experience with stuff like that. It's never better the second time you buy it. And with that, next we'll go to Dave, WB9BWP from KC9UDX.
Okay. Well, good evening, all. Since last we were here, I guess, I'm talking on a different microphone on this radio because I gotta come up with a switcher for a main microphone. Finally got a new HF radio after. Well, I don't buy the main radio very often. I mean, in 50 years I've had like 4. But I get the 2000 here for VHF and UHF all mode stuff. And then, of course, last week I find the problem. I haven't found the source. I think the diplexer that I had put the antenna for the 2 inputs on this radio is not fully functional. I had to take out a connector. I don't have it going on the UHF side, but it was messing up the VHF side too. But my meters are telling me everything's okay, so I think that's square. Yeah, the shipping stuff. Over the last, I'll say, noise connectors, in fact. I ordered things, and these are things both from eBay and from Amazon. And it's like, oh yeah, it'll be there next week. And then next week comes out, it'll be there in 2 weeks. And 2 more weeks go by. And, yeah, we don't know where it is. In the case of, I think, some connectors, they sat in, if you believe all the tracking stuff, they were sitting in Carroll Stream, Illinois for like a month. And then I finally said, forget it. I want my money back. And in both cases, both Amazon and eBay, they were real good and real prompt with that. They gave me the refund. And then, I suppose I shouldn't say this part, within a few days of getting the refund, I actually got the merchandise. I don't know if there's any connection there, or it's just coincidence, but that part happened twice. So, I don't know what's going on out there in the world. I see delivery trucks over here, every day there's an Amazon truck up and down the street, and FedEx has been quite frequent over here too. Anyway, last month, okay, that's the timer on the radio. I'll talk 3 minutes already, probably shouldn't talk much more. The storms last month, I did lose power for I don't know what it was, at least 6 hours, maybe 8 hours. But I do have a generator that runs most of the house, not everything, but it was somewhere probably right around maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock that we lost power here, and that stayed out until, like I said, 6 or 8 hours or so. Anyway, I guess that's good enough, and this is certainly more than 3 minutes. So, with that, this is WB9BWB. Oh, signal seemed a little bit down tonight, but that could be just my stuff over here. Anyway, WB9BWB, back to that.
All right, thank you, Dave. Yeah, your signal, excuse me, does seem a little bit lower than normal. But that's all I have to go by right now. I was not watching the meter when Jerry was talking last. And Frank always pegs the needle, so I don't have much to go by yet. I forgot about the power outages last month. I did not have that here, I don't think. Or if the power did go out, it was very brief. But I don't recall it going out at all. I do know people that had power out for 2 weeks. And that's something I've been thinking about a lot in recent years. There's a big push for everything to be electric these days, especially things like vehicles that use a lot of power. And they've been harping on us for decades about our fragile electric grid and how we shouldn't be using so much power. So I expect, and of course we've seen this in the news, I expect blackouts, to be more common. And I had a solution for power outages here in the past. I have a power inverter that I can run my furnace with a car battery, and the advantage of that is, I don't need a generator. I can charge the car battery with a car indefinitely as long as I can get gasoline, and be able to run the furnace and kind of run the well pump. It doesn't run doesn't run very well like that. And this year I decided to break down and buy a generator only because I found one by accident on Craigslist for a very good price. It's I think it's 7 kilowatts, which is adequate for my purposes for that. And this way I don't have to be lugging a battery up and down the stairs anymore. I have yet to install a transfer switch. There's a thing called GenerLink, which looks very, very convenient. It plugs into your meter socket. It goes right behind the meter, and the meter plugs into it. And it is an automatic transfer switch. You basically plug in your socket for your generator, and it disconnects the utility automatically. I kind of worry about the longevity of something like that, but installation is totally painless. but I have to contact We Energies to see if they'll even allow that. I don't know that they'll allow that device behind the meter like that. There are other utilities in the state that encourage that, and they will actually install it for you for free, provided that you pay for the unit, which is almost $1,000. But the installation, considering what it would normally cost to have somebody install something like that, having them do it for free, which it doesn't take them a whole lot to do it, it's a pretty good deal. And I got to see if We Energies will do something like that. I have a suspicion that they won't, but like I say, I have yet to get around to contacting them. And I think it's funny you mentioned Carroll Stream, Illinois. I've been noticing in recent months that everything I pay a bill to, I do all my bills I pay by mail yet. Every billing department has moved to Carroll Stream, Illinois. From all over the country they've moved to there. So I wonder if they're just running out of people in Carroll Stream, Illinois to handle all of the different things that are going on there now. I have not had shipping latency with the Postal Service, but I have with FedEx. I've had it really bad with FedEx. I've had things show up a month late and get routed all over the country, and then end up getting delivered to a post office somewhere, and then the Postal Service ends up finishing the delivery. But I've had a lot of problems with FedEx, and I don't get anything shipped from Amazon anymore. And I have not used UPS a whole lot. The few times that I haven't noticed anything unusual. But the Postal Service seems to always be on time, and FedEx has gotten really bad about that. Anyway, I'm going on and on and on here, and I will not keep going. If I keep going, I'll not give Jerry a turn to talk. So, Jerry, I'll turn it over to you, K9FI from KC9UDX.
Matt, this is K9FI, and I've got you on the internet right now. There's a couple of seconds delayed. I'm trying to think how loud I am. I think that's fairly hearable. I can't hear Dave at all. Of course, Frank's coming in there like gangbusters. But as far as activity, haven't done much on anything lately. And on this local nest and stuff like that, that's about the extent of it. And I had to make myself a big note to get on the radio tonight that my friend Dave likes to remind me. Anyhow, we're here. But Matt's coming in topical, Frank's coming in very strong, and of course Dave is down at right at the noise level. So with that, I'll turn it back to Matt. KC9UDX, K9FI.
All right, thank you, Jerry. And I would say that signals are down. Jerry, you're down from, where do I have you normally? 6 1/4. You're down to 4. Dave, you're down from also 6 1/4 to 5 1/2. So I would say that does indicate signals are just down. So there we go with that. And with that, we're at the bottom of the list. Let's see if we have any more check-ins for the 2 a.m. net. Come now, please. I'm not sure if we have somebody trying to check in. If so, please try again. Thank you, Dave. Well, I'll say hello to you, Dale. Maybe you can only hear me on YouTube. I cannot hear you. I can barely see your signal. And that's all I get. But I'll try one more time if there's anybody else. Anybody wants to check in, come now, please. All right, hearing none. Dale, I will put you on the list. But if Dave can barely hear you, I'm not sure how we're going to do this. What I will do here is we'll go to the top of the list. I will see if Frank can hear you. If Frank can hear you, maybe he can relay anything you have. And with that, we will go to the top of the list. Frank, W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, KC9UDX and that W9JCC. And I'm getting good signals except for Dale. Pat, you're using your usual 40/9. Jerry and Dave are both S9. And Dale, I can't even tell he's in there. Just get the noise. The audio on Dave and Jerry is really nice and loud. Dave might be a little bit louder on the audio, but both nice loud audio in here. I don't have my power up all the way. When we started having the lightning and wind and so forth here a month or so back, I cranked her down to about 42 feet, and that's where she had been sitting. Except when we got another more warnings to get it down a little bit lower, but that's where I've been keeping it here lately. And Matt, that explanation you gave there about the air infiltration and the gearbox, that really makes sense. And I am not going to fill it up to the top. In fact, this last time, when I took care of it there last week, I just filled it to the normal depth that they recommend. And it does have a drain hole in the bottom, plug that you can screw out. It's got a hex wrench socket there, so you can actually pull out about I would say about a tablespoon of water every year out of that thing. And it's kind of frustrating when you get that much, but I guess like you say, with the temperature changes and humidity up and down, you get air from the outside and it can build up in there. Talking about nearly as often as you do, Dave. My main radio's from 1992, SP1000D, and before that I had the SP 401, 301 combination, which I'm still using. It's upstairs in the patio. And before that I had a Johnson Ranger, a 75A4, and I'm still using those. So, and I've got the PS2000, which I inherited here. That's probably the newest rig, but last one I bought, I think, was the 1000D. As far as power outages, we've been pretty lucky. I had a couple blinks here when we had the storms. Sometimes I think I probably timed out there. The timeout on this rig does not tell me when it's timed out. It just must go back to receive. Anyway, I better go. Just kind of show it here until it's back on that KC9UDX, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. And I'm not sure if this qualifies or not. I may have, I may be buying HF radios less often than you guys are not, depending on how you look at it here. Of course, my main HF radio is a Drake TR3, so that qualifies for the not buying them very often part of it. But the fact is, I think I bought it 7, 8 years ago, something like that. So maybe I do buy them more often than you guys. One of these days, I've been saying this for years. I've got a KW2000A here that I need to rebuild the power supply on, and if I don't get that done, one of these, by the time I do get it done, I'll have to rebuild the entire radio, and then I'll have to rebuild the Drake too. So I really do need to get going on that. But like everything else, there's just too much stuff to do around here and not enough time. And with that, I've been talking a long time again. Dave, if you don't mind, if you could give Dale a call and see if you could, if you're willing, if you could relay anything that he might have to say, because I think you're the only one that can hear him. And then otherwise take your turn. But I'll send it to you, Dave, WB9BWP from KC9UDX.
First off, Frank, it does look like on the 2000 it just turns off the transmitter. It would be nice if it beeped or something. Maybe it does somewhere in the menu when it's not turned on. I've got to look at that someday. And I'll do what I can for Dale. I'm surprised because usually he's booming in here because he's only a couple of miles straight east of me. But he was way down in the noise, like the antenna's not there. Trust me, I know about that because I've done that here. Let's see. Oh yeah, the generator that I've got is it's a natural gas one. You know, it's all plumbed in and everything. It's a cooler one, mainly because I know people that work at Generac. So I don't have one of those. And when they put that in, they had to increase the size of the main gas pipe in the house. And they had to replace the meter. And the guy that ends up doing that happened to live like up the street. Also has a generator on his house too. When we first moved in here, we would get outages every couple of months. It's gotten much better over the years. But we do have them. There's a lot of they always say that it's due to a tree kind of thing. And the way things are wired here, before I come out there, start over here, stand by. The way things are wired here, and I know this because the one time when the cable guy was out here doing some work, and he brought up a map of all the wiring in the area, and so I saw it to be sure. It's our house and the house directly east of us are going off in one direction on one line, and every other house around here is going in another direction. So we can lose power, but almost nobody else here does. And so we're sort of at the end of the line, and so if they go and start looking down the line to see where the problem is, they don't get here for hours. And I know that too because a couple of years ago, power pole that's actually not on our property, it's over a little ways, but there's a bunch of trees around it, and we called them, and we just couldn't even see the top of the pole anymore. The trees were so big. We called them and said, maybe you guys want to check this out. And it was on a Monday. The guy came out and said, don't worry about that. There's no problem. Then nothing will happen. On Friday, that tree blasted into a pole, took something out. We were without power for 6 hours. Anyway. And Carroll Stream, I spent a few years as a hired gun at Eaton, and they had a division down in Carroll Stream that they did some work for, and they sold them to Delphi, which was good because those guys weren't any good down there. Anyway, I'll send it back to Ned, and when it gets to be Dale's turn, I'll give it a shot. This is WB9BWP.
All right, thank you, Dave. And I guess I have the opposite you do for my power here. I'm sort of at the beginning of the line. I'm usually the last guy to go without power, which is kind of nice. I haven't had a whole lot of power outages here over the years, and it's usually not more than a few hours that it's ever out. The longest it's ever been was, I think it was 2 days, and that was not the power company's fault, really. That was my tree. The roots grew into the conductors underneath my driveway and took out one leg, which caused me quite a bit of frustration the day that it happened, not exactly knowing what had happened. I thought my air compressor motor had burned up, and I had just replaced that very expensive air compressor motor, and I was not real happy about that. But they did come out and dig up my driveway and replace the conductor underneath there, or they spliced it, and cleaned it up really well. And I think they were working on it for 3 days, but I seem to recall they had some other way to route the power for a while, so I wasn't out of power the whole time. But that's the longest it's ever been. And next we'll go to Jerry, K9FI from KC9UDX.
Okay, Matt. And I couldn't hear much of Dave, but mostly the weeds. Dale talked a little more in the weeds than David. And I hope you can hear me. Like I said, Frank's coming in like gangbusters. And as far as activities around here, we were thinking about going on that Wisconsin Park study here this weekend, but my wife was not that enthused about it. We did it last year, went down to the park on Highway 83 there, and by Gallup, past Delafield, but that big park got to 9 o'clock in the morning to get a good response. And of course, now the meeting starts about 10 or 11. We had a couple of contacts, nothing very great, and then we moved up to Rose Lake, which is another big park, and operated there for a while. We got a couple of contacts, and then all of a sudden, I swear, about 2 o'clock to 1:30 in the afternoon, everybody went home and heard no one after that. So he says he doesn't feel like going through all the work if they don't see on the air for a while, and that's about it. We heard the Wisconsin, or was it the Ozaki Club? Yeah, the Ozaki Club was up there, up at one of the lake state parks on the, one of the parks right out on the lake parks up there. We heard them, but we heard them put a good signal, but they never heard us, so it could have been our antenna, so it wasn't the greatest. So he doesn't think he's going to bother, and I can say I'm not that excited about it, and I don't know what the weather's going to be, but that could change, And other than that, get on my normal method every day at 8 meters and do some 6 meters, some 220 and some 440 on Wednesday night with the West Side group, and that's about it. And Frank, I'll probably see you Thursday night, by the way, and thanks for getting all the information out, and hopefully we'll have a good turnout there. We did go to the West Dallas Prospect last weekend. We had a nice time to meet everybody over there. That was enjoyable. I probably will go down to Conco Park tomorrow, which is where our club, MRAC club, used to have their field day, and W09B is going to operate from the tree to the park bench. We'll probably get together and have a little yak session over there. That's always fun. And did get on the Villa Valley Snoopy tonight with Brad and Dean. That was about the only two fellas that were on there. That's all I've been talking to the last couple of weeks. But it's nice to see them and see what they're doing. And it's always fun. Dean is always something, and I like to see what he's doing because it's always neat. So with that, before I put the team to sleep, and Gail is security, and I'm sure that that's to my K9FI. I mean, Matt. Back to my Matt, K9FI.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Fine business on the state parks. I tend to spend a lot of time in state parks, so it's too bad I can't do that kind of stuff. I never seem to have time when everybody else has time. And you know how it goes. Nobody hears anybody on the air, so they give up and go home. And then, of course, nobody else hears anybody on the air, so they give up and go home. That's how that always works. And wow, I guess I should be writing this down. I was going to comment on something else you said, and I can't for the life of me recall what it is now. because I was thinking about that. So I'll probably think about it here in a little while, and then I'll have to write it down again. With that, we're going to try to go to Dale AB9DW, but I will turn it over to Dave because Dale probably can't hear me directly anyway. Dave, if you could call Dale, I'll send it to you, WB9BWP from KC9UDX.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. AB9DW, if you were still there, why don't you take a turn and I'll see what I can hear and I'll pass it along. So, Dale, give it a shot.
Everyone on YouTube, I'll point out that what you're hearing here in these oscillations is Dale's signal, reflections of it.
Okay. I got some of that. I know that he was talking about batteries for some of his, for radio stuff, for power issues, and he mentioned, and I should have said too, that tonight there's very little delay on YouTube. Certainly much less than I've heard sometimes. So that's how I have to pick up Jerry, and that's how Dale was getting everybody tonight. So, Andy says hi. But, and the signal sounds good, or I said the audio sounds good, but it just seemed very low. I mean, like you're in the noise. So I would just take a look at everything from the back of the radio going up. I don't know if you tuned in earlier where I talked about a type of problem that I was having. Anyway, I'm talking now too. So, anyway, he was there, he's listening on YouTube, and I'll give it back to that. This is WB9PWB.
All right, thank you, Dave. That I appreciate that. That helps a lot. And thank you, Dale. I was not aware that the YouTube lag is low. That's good to hear. Maybe they're improving that. I have still not gotten around to making it work streaming to Odyssey. I've got some ideas on how I could do that, and maybe the lag will be less there, maybe it'll be worse, so we can try that out. But first I have to make it work, and that needs setting time aside to do that. I did attempt that with this computer, set up the way it is for YouTube, and it should have worked, but for some reason I didn't have any audio, and that's kind of crucial. But Dale's signal was about as low as a signal as I can receive. Could not make out any audio. What's interesting is the signal was so low that all I was getting was oscillations of his signal beating against reflections of itself off of other objects out there somewhere. And with that, we're at the bottom of the list again. Let's see if we have any more check-ins for the 2 a.m. net. Come now, please. All right, hearing none. We will go back to the top of the list. And I suspect this will be our last go-around, but no need to be short. Go ahead and take your time. And Frank, I think I was going to mention this before and I forgot. But since you've got that drain plug on the bottom of that gearbox, it may be something you're interested in to install a valve on there instead of that drain plug. Of course, put the plug after a valve, but then when you do have to drain it, take the plug out of the valve and you can avoid the mess of getting oil all over when you're taking the plug out. I like to do that on everything that I have that I need to drain the oil out of. Cars accepted, of course. There's no place to be putting drain valves on oil pans on cars, but every other gearbox I have, I like to do that. It takes a little bit to install it the first time, but every time you have to drain it, it makes it a lot easier. But anyway, go back to the top of the list. Frank, W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, thanks, Matt. And yeah, good idea on that bell. You might mention next time around where you get those. I'm thinking maybe a big box store, but it's not a very big plug. It's probably about a half an inch diameter, I would guess, at the most. And yeah, it's a little messy when you unplug it because you have to handle the plug and or let it drop into a pan, and it's probably the cleanest way. Let it drop into the pan and let the fluid come out. I finally got you guys on YouTube, and I'm having a heck of a time. I don't know if it's my audio system here, but things are not coming in. Yeah, I can hear myself. I'm a little bit. I've got a little bit longer lag than the other fellows seem to have there. But anyway, yeah, I think you got the prize there, Matt, for the oldest main rig, at least as far as I can tell. That sounds like about a mid to late 1960s. The one I got up on the patio was a 1966 vintage rig. And still works great, still works a lot of DX. It's probably the quietest receiver of any of the receivers that I have here. The other thing I've been looking at is maybe re-roofing the house, and I'm kind of at a dilemma here because the roof looks really good. Haven't had any leaks. It's 26 years old, and I don't want to have any problems here in the next few years. So we'll get some estimates, got a kind of rough idea what it would probably cost, but I'm going to have to make a decision whether we want to just go with what we got and roll the dice or put a new one up there. Okay, I don't have too much more. I'll turn it back to Ned, KC9UDX, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. And I guess I would, if I were in your shoes, I would not hesitate. 26 years is getting up there. I let my last roof on this house go for 30 years, and that was really, really pushing it. I wouldn't recommend anybody do that. Of course, roofing is different these days. Everybody wants to try to convince you to get a metal roof, which might not be a bad idea, and they've greatly improved rust protection on steel roof panels. So that's probably a good thing. I don't know, but I guess I'm still hesitant about that sort of thing. I haven't forgotten the fact that it used to be the only people that got metal roofs were those who couldn't get other roofing materials, or where it just doesn't matter. But I guess there might be something to the trend, so that's something to consider, of course. But obviously, that's something you'll have to decide whatever you're going to do. But I would definitely recommend doing something at 26 years. That's kind of a gamble now. Oh, and the valve, I buy those at Ace Hardware. I don't think the big box stores sell real small ones like that. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but I do know for a fact that like Ace Hardware, True Value, places like that do have them. The one that you need is probably a 3/8. It's either a quarter or 3/8, and 3/8 I would say is most common for that kind of thing. But I guess you'll have to measure it and figure that out. Obviously, it's going to be pipe threads, so you can't measure it directly. You'll have to measure it and look up what the size is. But that's where I would get that. I usually go to the Ace Hardware here in Waukesha, just because it's real close by. Otherwise, there's a True Value in Muskego that I'll go to. I kind of like going there more, but it's a little bit more out of the way. And next we'll go to Dave, WB9BWP from KC9UDX.
Okay. I forgot what I was going to lead off with, but that's okay. Gary mentioned the park stuff and that also going on. It just started, I think, Sunday. There's a Route 66 special event thing. I forget now, and there's like 20 different stations out there. There were a bunch last night. I was tooting around, but I was a little late because I was on another net, the 8 o'clock thing, and this was after 9, and the bands were starting to fade, and the pileups were still pretty big. And I did notice, we were talking about signals here before, that I don't know if it was like Sunday night or over the weekend that 2 meters was opening up again. Because I was hearing stuff scanning. I was hearing things into Indiana and out to Madison and past. So I thought, well, it's a little late in the year for that to be opening up like that. From where I am, I sometimes will, as part of the scanning, I'll have the VHF simulcast of Waukesha fire stuff, all the smaller towns mainly, but the same frequency is used in northern Illinois, and I can hear them. Those signals are about half scale. I'm hearing fire dispatch out of Mundelein and Libertyville and those places. Anyhow, yeah, I'm getting short here. I'll say 73.4 to everyone. And, yeah, I just reach over and turn, I have a boombox, an old boombox that's connected to the computer to give me the sound coming out of that. So I just turn the volume up and down so I can listen to Jerry there. But that's been working well there tonight. Anyhow, and I'll listen for Dale on his turn again. So anyway, it's good hearing you guys. Oh, and I was going to mention too that, and I don't remember the frequency, but the Jefferson County guys are doing an AM net on 2 meters. I think it's Wednesday nights. But like I say, I don't recall the frequency they're doing that. And that's every week, I think. Anyhow, so there's other people, you know. Oh, there's the timer again. So there's other people out there, you know. Maybe it's a trend. Anyhow, this is WB9BWP. Back to them.
All right, thank you, Dave. And they've been doing that longer than we have. I don't recall all the details. I used to know this stuff. There's a couple other groups a little bit further distance in other directions around here doing AM stuff like this. But they are just out of my range. I think I can hear them once in a while. But these days I don't get time to spend in here on Wednesdays usually. So maybe I'll look into that again if I get an opportunity. And you mentioned the signals. I think the sun is very active right now, which is a good thing. It's been very inactive for a long time. In fact, there are some coronal mass ejections happening at this time. I don't know the exact status of that stuff, but things could get interesting here in the future, in the near future, hopefully. And with that, we'll go to Jerry, K9FI from KC9UDX.
Okay, Matt. I hear you talking to you right now. There's a delay there, of course. And as far as activities, let's see. We did have some rain the other day. In fact, we had about, what did my wife say, about 2.5 inches all total. And we had some nice big lightning strikes around here, big bangers going on, which woke me up, and that's normal. But nothing happened or anything. No branches came down, no trees fell down, and my antennas were still up. And that's good. And now I got one question. Seeing that you seem to have a collection of stuff, if you ever come across, what I'm looking for is an air capacitor that's about 100 people there that'll handle about 3 kV. So if you happen to have something like that in your file, or even a little bigger, let me know. I'm kind of hunting for one for my magnetic group. I've been debating about using ceramic capacitors and putting lumps of capacitors on it, and then getting a smaller, even a 150 people pair, and that's good for about 6 kV, for a tuning capacitor on it. Lump of capacitors. So, and if you happen to think of something like that or see one, let me know. I'd be interested in it. Otherwise, that's about it for here. I'm having a hard time concentrating with this delay. The back to you, Matt. K905.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Maybe some of the other guys have a lead on a capacitor like that. I do not. I do have a lot of components here, but mostly for newer stuff. I don't have the kind of components you would build older stuff with, or things like that. I just so a capacitor like that is not something I would normally have. Not to say that I don't. I have acquired boxes and boxes of stuff from people over the years, but a lot of that stuff I haven't even gone through to see what's actually in there. So next we'll go to Dale. But Dave, I'll have you call Dale again because he probably doesn't hear me for a couple of seconds. So WB9BWP from KC9UDX.
Okay. Well, Dale, you're still there. Take another shot here, and I'll be listening. AB9 WW. This is WB9BWB. Dale says he does not have any capacitors like that either. And he sends a 73 along. And I remember I was going to throw in there. We did a roof, I don't know, 5 years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Hard to tell. But we had a guy come in about metal roof. I think they even had aluminum. But the biggest thing was that was the kind of thing my wife and I, as we discussed it later, was like, well, maybe if this were 20 years ago or something, or if we were 20 years younger, I should say, maybe we would have done it because the cost was, I think I'm going to say 3 to 4 times easily what the regular roof was. Anyhow, I'll send it back to that. Dale sends a 73. This is WB9BWP.
All right, thank you, Dave. I'll say 7-3 to you since you said that earlier, and I'll say 7-3 to Dale. That's interesting about the price. I had never really looked into it and hadn't really considered it. For me personally, I would not consider a metal roof for one particular reason. I do spend a lot of time on the roof doing various things, and I don't like the idea of walking around on a slippery metal roof. I'll stick to the asphalt shingles. Anyway, go to the top of the list. Call this the 7-3 round. Frank W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, thanks, Matt. And as far as the capacitors, Jerry, I don't have any of those in my possession, but just trying to think who might. I don't know if you look at our products, perhaps. eBay. I know if you go down the date, they usually have just about anything you could imagine. But I think those, they usually get into those vacuum capacitors when they get into that real high voltage stuff. But they're not used too much anymore like they were in the past. As far as metal roof goes, we've got an aluminum roof on our patio, and it is the noisiest thing you can imagine. Boy, when the rain starts coming down, you've got to close the patio door, otherwise you can't survive in the family room. Anyway, 73 to everybody. Good hearing everybody tonight, and everybody have a great rest of the week there. Back to net, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. I'll say 7-3 to you, and we'll go next to Jerry. Jerry, it's your turn on the 7-3 round.
Okay, man. I just realized that we signed off already. And as far as roofs go, I just had a roof put on a couple weeks ago. It was a normal asphalt shingle. The guy did a really nice job. And now he's doing my neighbor's roof. And I had a dimension shingle on it for a long time. And this time I went right back to the regular ones. I didn't worry about getting fancy. So the guy did a real nice job. Very nice to work with. And they put roof vents, ridge vents on it and stuff like that, which is needed. And then he forgot to tell my wife, we should have put a big tarp up in there, covering up all the stuff in the attic. When he cut through the board, all that sawdust came down all over everything. She went up the street and just said, oh my God, what a mess. But anyhow, the next he did a good job, but he never mentioned when he cut the hole in the roof that he never put a tarp over it, or we didn't either. Other than that, 73 to everybody, and stay safe. have fun, and we'll look for you in a month, and let you see that, it's going to go by really quick. This time of drag is not really like that. It's always, when it's the second week of September, I'm not used to it. I'm not even caught up to it yet. But that's me, I'm always about a month behind anyhow. You guys have a great time. It was fun on the net.
All right, thank you, Jerry. And yeah, the tarp, the tarp in the attic is one of those things that's obvious in retrospect, but not something anybody would ever think of otherwise. But I have to run here, so I will say this concludes the 2 a.m. net. Feel free to rag through on this frequency. After my transmission, we will meet again on the 12th of October. Until then, this is KC9UDX 73, and good night.